I think the things that you focus on in your preclinical work to get to the clinic are driven by your assessment of the risk-benefit. And in pretty much all of the design control guidelines now, there's some form of a failure mode effects analysis, or whatever the current term in the guidelines is. But when you really sit down and critically think about the procedure that you're proposing and the device or technology that you're bringing to that, and you list down the things that could go wrong and what are their ramifications to the patient, or in some cases to the operator, that really guides you to the things that are most critically important to prove before getting into the clinic. And then the next step after that is, so you identify whatever there are. Hopefully there's not more than single digits of the really big ones, but that's what you have to focus on and design your bench testing and your preclinical testing to answer that question. Then there are certainly going to be ones where you can't mitigate in preclinical testing. And the decision about whether to go to the clinic, hopefully you've thought about that well in advance of this point in the project. That often gets thought out a lot in the project selection phase. But when you get to thinking about your clinical trial, you need to make sure that if there are risks that you haven't knocked down in preclinical testing, you have ways to detect them in the clinical setting as early as possible. And whether that's a diagnostic test, an imaging test, a physical exam, whatever it is, you need to make sure that that's built into the program. And your regulators are going to want to see it, your IRBs are going to want to see that. If there are things where you don't think you're going to be able to risk that you can't detect going through your clinical trial, that could be a showstopper.